Okay, before I get started, I just want to say that it's really, really important that you guys do not talk during the presentation. You guys can laugh or when I say a joke, whatever. But last presentation we got a little rowdy and it's kind of distracting for the presenter. So just so I can get through the presentation, please do not talk during the presentation. You guys ready? So today I'm going to talk to you guys about autism. How many of you guys have ever heard of autism before? Wow, that's a lot of people. How many of you guys are related to someone who has autism? Alright. Okay. Well, it's hard to talk about autism because autism is it's not black and white. It's very complex. If I were to bring up 5 people with autism up on the stage, every person would be different. Now, if I were to bring up 5 people who have Down syndrome, they would all have the same characteristics and the diagnosis would be around the same ballpark. Autism is the way our brain develops. It didn't develop typical like our brains did. They think differently and it's formed a little differently than ours. Studies show that people with an autistic brain, their brains are usually a little bit bigger than ours. So the diagnosis with autism can go, it's very different. It's one diagnosis to describe so many different stories. We can have one person who's severely autistic, who can't speak, and they need a communication device to express their wants and needs. They need to use pictures to show you what it is that they want, like if they want a snack, go to the restroom, they need to use that. And they have stimming behavior where they rock back and forth, flap their hands, or when they're really aggravated, they can pound their head on the desk or the wall to the point that they bust it open and need stitches. That's one type of autism. Another type of autism is someone who is very smart, knows a lot about a particular subject, and could be in your class and you not even know. So it's very different. There's a whole spectrum of autism. Autism is also known as ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder. This is what the spectrum kind of looks like. And depending on how severe your development was affected by autism determines where you fall on the spectrum. You can be severely autistic, you can have mild autism, you can have an above IQ, or you can be brilliant when it comes to autism. When we think about autism, I think the best analogy is using this. Are you guys familiar with this telephone system? Have you guys ever seen it like on a movie or something? Way back then, before cell phones and all that, we had people call and they would call these telephone operators. And what they do is when you get a call, you tell them who you're trying to contact and they plug you into wherever you're trying to talk to. Autism kind of works like this. Our brains work like this. So when we feel pain, emotion, anxiety, our brain sends a message through our nervous system and we express pain, how, hot, cold, what have you. But with autism, the connectors aren't connecting. They don't connect. So if someone with autism is feeling pain, they don't know how to express it. So that can turn into a huge meltdown or a behavior. Sometimes they're overly sensitive. They're very sensitive towards smell, the way they see things visually, all the 5 senses. Sometimes when these fluorescent lights make those noises, it can be too loud for them. Sometimes visually, when they're visually sensitive. Have you ever gone to the movies and the movie's like 2 hours long and then you walk outside and it's super bright outside? Imagine being like that all the time. Or you can be underly sensitive. There was an article years ago about a kid who put his hand in boiling water and he didn't feel pain. He didn't feel it. So he got 3rd-degree burns on his hand and he didn't feel it, and it's because of his autism. His brain wasn't connecting, it wasn't sending those signals. When we talk about autism too, we need to understand that autism, they don't understand like social cues. So sometimes when they're talking to you, they might be like right in your face, and you don't understand like why they're right here talking to you. And they're like, I need personal space. Or sometimes they don't pick up on social cues. Like sometimes I like to play this video with this coworkers, a group of coworkers. They're at lunch, and this girl, she's crying because her boyfriend dumped her. Like, why did he dump me? Well, I'm great, right? Like, I'm an awesome person. Why would he dump me? And then, of course, when you're there with your friend, like, you build them up, you know? You're like, yeah, he's such a loser. He doesn't know what he's missing. There's plenty of fish in the sea. Like, you rock, you... And then sometimes you lie to them. You're like, yeah, like, you have such an incredible smile. You know, you're there for your friends, you know, you want to build them up. You're like, it's not you, it's them. So they're sitting at this lunch table, and then someone with autism walks by, and they invite him, they're like, hey, come sit, have lunch with us. And she's going on, she's like, but why? Why would he dump me? And then the guy with autism looks up, and he's like, well, maybe he thought you were ugly. Now, this doesn't mean that he thought she was ugly, but the way that autistic people think is that they're very cause and effect. You know, 2 + 2 = 4. So if you want to know why someone breaks up with you, what is the reason someone breaks up with you? Maybe they're not attracted to you, maybe you're ugly. So that's how they think. So you can see how autistic people can get in trouble when if you don't know that they're autistic and they're out in public and they just come up to you and they're like, well, maybe you're ugly. You're like, what the heck? I have a great smile, my friend told me. So early signs of autism, we usually diagnose autism around 2 or 3 years old. And indications of this is because typically toddlers and babies, they'll start crawling, they'll start babbling, you know, their goo goo gaga talk. And if you have a toddler and he's playing and he starts laughing at inappropriate things, not at anything that's really funny, but just like at inappropriate things, that can be an indicator that this person may have autism. Or if you speak to them and they don't really speak to you, they kind of just repeat what you say, like, hi, how you doing, John? They're like, hi, how you doing, John? That's how they talk, some of them. Or if they're about 1 year old and they're still not walking, they're still not crawling, or they're still not talking, that's an indicator. They say that people with autism usually develop slower than we do, so even though someone who has autism is in middle school, mentally their mind is still elementary. Does that make sense? If they don't make eye contact when they're talking to you or you're talking to them and they kind of look around and you feel like they're ignoring you or not paying attention, people with autism really have poor eye contact. Or if a group of people is playing and they're always off to the side doing their own thing, usually playing with something that spins, or they spin objects, or they don't like being touched. And I'm not talking about, like, you know those babies when grandma comes over, like, oh, let me hold them, and they're like, nah. That's not autism. Autism is more like when the kid doesn't want to be touched by anyone. He doesn't want to be picked up by mom, dad, sister, brother, nobody. People with autism typically they stim a lot. And stimming is something that they do, like hand flapping, rocking back and forth. They may jump up and down. They might repeat something. It's a repetitive behavior. But everyone in this room stims. We all stim. How many times have you guys had one of those pins that click and you're about to take a test or something and you're just like, okay, let's do it. That's stimming. Or how many of you have gotten in trouble, or you know you're about to get in trouble, and your mom or dad's going to be home, or your teacher's going to yell at you, and you just pace the floor, go back and forth? That's stimming. Or if you're about to turn in a report, or you're about to take a test and you didn't study, and you have your hand on the desk, and you keep tapping it, like, okay, trying to calm yourself down. That's what stimming is. So if you're someone with autism and you have sensory issues, like I said, when you walk out of a movie theater and the light is too bright, they tend to stim a lot. They'll stim all day long. Guys do a really weird stim sometimes when they're talking to like cute girls. Guys get real nervous when they're talking to cute girls, and then they'll start like licking their lips like. Girls do something funny too. When girls are talking to that cute guy or they have that crush and your friends are like, go talk to him, he's over there. And girls go over and they're like, hi. Like, why am I twirling my hair? Why is my pencil in my hand? That's all stimming. So anytime you have like anxiety or you're nervous about something, we usually stim to kind of deal with those behaviors. So people with autism, they're stemming away. I have a student who always is flapping his hands like this, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna fly away one day. Calm down. So we have about 7 billion people on this earth, and 1% of our Earth's population is autistic. They are on the spectrum. In the United States, we have about 1 in 68 people are born autistic. 1 out of 68 births. Autistic. Do we want to guess? Do you guys think boys are more diagnosed than girls? Raise your hand if you think boys are diagnosed more than girls. Raise your hand if you think girls are more diagnosed than boys. Raise your hand if you think it's about the same. Boys are 5 times more likely to be diagnosed than girls. Hold on, girls, don't start clapping yet. Twirling your hair. 1 in every 42 boys are diagnosed with autism, so that's 5 times the amount compared to girls. 1 in every 189 girls are diagnosed with autism, but it's much harder to diagnose girls with autism than it is with boys. Girls have more, their autism is more socially acceptable. Like with boys with autism, they might be obsessed with Thomas the Train, right? In preschool, they're about that Thomas life, you know? They just rock with Thomas. But it never goes away. So they're still rocking with Thomas in middle school and high school, and then people are like, dude, you're still rocking with Thomas? Still? Grow up? But girls, they're more likely to be all into like makeup, clothes, shoes. So when you have a preschooler who's obsessed with makeup, you know, it's not the end of the world. And then when they're middle school and high school, a lot of girls are into makeup. So it's much harder to diagnose girls with autism, but that means that if they're not being diagnosed, they're not getting the support that they need. How about that? So what is the cause of autism? What is causing autism? For 10 years now, we've seen the number of people grow and grow and grow. About 10 years ago, it was about 1 in 188 people. Years after that, it was about 1 in every 88. Now it's at 1 in every 64. Just earlier this year, these parents got together and they were doing a survey in their community, and they looked at all the kids from 3 years old to 17, and they found out that 1 in every 35 boys were diagnosed with autism. 1 in 35. Researcher Andrew Wakefield predicts that if we do not find the cause, and if we don't get ahead of this, by 2030, if you have a boy in the year 2030, there will be a 50-50 chance that your boy will be autistic. So why do you need to know about autism? Because it's coming. So what we do know based on research is that men who have children later in life, increases the risk of their child being autistic. So the older the man is when they have a kid, the higher the chances of having a kid with autism. Women, when they're pregnant, if they're around like pollution and anything that can disrupt the development of a kid while they're pregnant can cause autism. We see that some medications cause autism, like epilepsy medication, and then we do know that there is a genetic component. But because autism is such a wide spectrum of different things, there are different causes of it as well. And we do know that there is a genetic component. So researchers looked at identical twins, fraternal twins, and siblings. Now, identical twins means that during conception, there was one egg, one sperm, and it created two babies. Now, these babies share 100% of the same genetic code. But yet, there's only a 77% chance that both of them will be autistic. It's not 100%. In fraternal twins, during conception, there was two eggs and two sperm, and it created the two babies. They only share 50% of the same genetic code. And that percentage of them both being autistic was 31%. Now, if you have a kid, what are the chances that their siblings are going to have autism? If you have a kid and they're already autistic, the percentage is about 20%. Now, if we think about genes and genetic and DNA, it's very complex, much like autism. And if you think about a bookcase, and it's filled with books, and you take, that's your DNA, and you take one of the books off the shelf, and you open it up to a random page, and you change one letter, that can cause a defect in a child. So researchers are looking, is it one gene? Is it a group of genes? Is there an autistic gene? We don't know, but we're looking into it. So then we look at other conditions. We looked at conditions like cancer, heart disease, diabetes. How many of you guys know someone who's had cancer or has cancer? Look, that's pretty common. How many of you guys know someone who has heart disease, like high blood pressure? How many of you guys know someone who has diabetes? Like, it's pretty common, right? Genetics plays a larger role in autism than it does in those other conditions. So there is a genetic component. But the crazy thing about autism is that you don't even have to have a history of autism in your family to determine if your next generation is going to have autism. Autism is a genetic mutation. So you could have no one in your family, no one autistic, but then when I talk to high schoolers and they want to bump and grind and have a baby because they think they're going to be on 16 and pregnant and get a check, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Before you bring a baby into this life, what are you going to do if they have autism? So I can't talk about autism and not bring up this whole vaccine controversy in the community. So I'm not going to give you my personal thought about it. I'm going to give you what the facts are. This guy, Andrew Wakefield, was a doctor, and he conducted this research project in 1998, and he claimed that he found a link with the MMR vaccine to autism. He said that the MMR vaccine causes autism. Now, this is a vaccine we all get when we're about 1 year old. And in his research, he had about 12 kids in his study. And after this was published, parents stopped vaccinating their kids. Rightfully so. And in 2014, there was a huge outbreak of whooping cough in Disneyland. Everyone who went to Disneyland, we had over 600 cases all over California, New York, New Jersey. It was all over. There was about 10 infants that died during that time. Now, doctors they were upset about it because all of that could have been prevented if the kids were vaccinated, and they weren't. So this guy, Brian Deere, he's an award-winning journalist. He looked into the report, and he contacted the parents of the 12 kids that were in the study, and he determined that all of their medical history was altered and changed to benefit the findings. And allegedly, Andrew Wakefield had a birthday party for his son, and he took blood samples from every child that attended that birthday party and used it in his study. Not only that, he was trying to get money from the parents as well. He said, look, I found this connection. I know what caused autism. If you give me money, I can work on a cure. So this Andrew Wakefield is no longer practicing medicine. His journal was taken off, and he no longer practices medicine. But the issue now is parents still question vaccines. Do they cause autism? And doctors will tell you that absolutely no, they don't. And now Andrew Wakefield says that they do not cause autism, but they trigger autism. And he says instead of taking it at 1 year old, you should take it when you're 3 years old. But when you wait that long, that's when kids are most vulnerable to that disease, is when they're little. So now there's a huge controversy. You guys, if you ever need to research something on a research paper, this is a very interesting topic. Both sides have some pretty compelling arguments, but as of right now, according to doctors, vaccines do not cause autism. So jumping to the mind of autism. We are very language-based, meaning like you guys are sitting here, I'm talking to you guys, and you guys are learning about autism. That's how typically our minds work. But people with autism, they can't sit there and listen to someone speak for an hour. They're not going to get anything out of it. The way that they think is more like Google Images. They think with pictures. They need to see things. They can play stuff in their mind like a video almost. Temple Grandin is a huge advocate for autism because she has autism. She has written books. She has some movies out. And she visited the slaughter farms for cows, and they were having issues with the structure, and cows were being scared, and she figured out in her brain, like she didn't write it down or anything, but she created the whole layout of the farm to help the process in her mind. And now she gets paid lots of money to go around to rebuild these farms for cows. Now, our brains are programmed to look at the bigger picture and then details. Autistic minds focus on details and then the bigger picture. So the first thing that we typically see is the big letters, S and H. That's the first thing we see. But an autistic mind is like, wait, why is that S made up of little H's? They focus on details, and then they look at the big picture. Oh, that's an SH. Does that make sense to you guys? So as an educator, this is kind of just, it makes you wonder. Because in schools, a lot of schools, they're taking out like art and music and stuff like that. These are subjects that autistic people, they excel at. That's their subject. And when we think about, if we don't have that, how are we developing their brains? How are we setting them up for the world if we're not preparing them with art and music and stuff like that? Because we all are different types of thinkers. We all think differently. Some of us, we're very visuals. We need to see stuff. Some of us, we need to be hands-on. We need to be able to touch and be able to work on it on our own. And some of us, you can just tell us verbally what you want us to do and we can do it. We all have different types of thinking. Researchers are very adamant that these people were on the autism spectrum. Albert Einstein, Mozart, Sir Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, who did the whole evolution theory. For argument's sake, let's just say, sure, they were autistic, right? We can't know for sure because they're long gone, and we can't test them. But with their abilities, it does show that they had autistic behavior. So if they were autistic back then, and with the rising amount of autistic people now, where are these thinkers now in 2018? Where are they? But autism is still around. Well, we found one, Jacob Barnett, and I've been following Jacob for a while now. I've been reading his these articles that come out with him, and he's an incredible young man. At 2 years old, he was diagnosed with autism, and when he was about a toddler, he was starting to speak, he was starting to walk, he was doing everything a little kid would do. But then out of the blue, he stopped completely. He stopped talking, he stopped walking. Doctors said that he would never be able to speak again. Doctors said he would never be able to tie his shoes. So his mom enrolled him in preschool, and they did intense therapies, what you're supposed to do, but it wasn't going anywhere. So then his mom decided that she was going to go against all that, and she was just going to focus on things that he enjoyed. And he really liked planets and stars and all that stuff. So she focused on that. That's what he was able to do. And then he started talking again. But only this time, he was speaking like 4 different languages. His mind is incredible. Like, he hears a language and he was able to speak it. He didn't have to study it, it clicks. So because of his gift, his mom enrolled him in a college course at 8 years old. 8 years old. And he aced his final in his college class at 8 years old. And after that, the college invited him. They wanted him to be a student at their college. But you can't do that until you've completed your curriculum of all of middle school and all of high school. He hadn't gone there yet because he went straight to college. It took him 2 years to finish all of that education. He taught himself algebra and geometry in 2 weeks. He's 8 years old, and he taught himself algebra and high school algebra and geometry in 2 weeks. And all he did was open up the book and read it from start to finish, and he memorized the whole thing. By the time he was 13 years old, he did a TED Talk, and he was published in the physics paper. He's one of the youngest people to ever be published in the physics journal, and he graduated college at 18. Right now, he's attending a college in Canada, working on his PhD, and he's 18 years old. So I have to ask this question because it comes up. What is normal? You know, what is the definition of normal? Is there a definition of normal? People are often scared of variety. People are often scared of things that they don't know enough about. So when they don't know something, they want to put you in this tiny box with this label, and that's how you're supposed to act. That's who you are. If you're a woman, you're put in this box, this is your label, that's who you are. If you're a certain race, if you're a religion, if you're autistic, if you have a disability, you're put into this tiny little box and your definition, and that's who you're supposed to be. But when you're like Jacob or anyone else, when you step outside of that box, you tend to shine. You shine. As an instructional assistant, I'm not a teacher yet. I graduate in December, and I'm working towards my teaching degree. And I wanted to raise awareness because awareness is more and more people are being diagnosed with autism. So I wanted to go to a school and talk about awareness to teachers. And I wanted to just give some insight, because a lot of times we fall into stereotypes. Before I started working with special ed, I had the idea of this stereotype of special ed. I didn't know that they were capable of doing a lot of things that they're doing. I didn't know that they can be taught. And a lot of teachers, not to their fault of their own, but they have that same belief. Autism is so unpredictable. Jacob stopped speaking at 2 years old. And now he's working on his PhD at 18. So, I wanted to do this presentation. I wanted to just tell educators the field that I want to go into, these people that I look up to, but it's okay to have autism in your class. It's okay that your class isn't that cookie cutter image that you thought. That's all I was doing. But these teachers were not having it. They wanted to know why I thought I was qualified to even speak to them about this when I don't have a college degree like they do. They try to put me in a box. I'm an instructional assistant. I don't have a college degree. So you need to know your place. They don't want you to shine. I said, well, I don't have a college degree. I'm in the middle of working on my college degree, but I have 7 years experience in this field, working one-on-one with these types of kids. I can only tell you what my experience is, and whatever you want to do with that is up to you. So when you step out of your box, you shine. And they're going to tell you, your light's too bright. Your light's too bright. Your light's too bright. And you need to look at these people and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to dim my light. So I'm going to hand you some shades. Don't be afraid of your shine. Don't be afraid that when you do you go all the way up. You shine. Shine a light on autism. Shine a light on you. Shine a light on whatever it is that you work towards. All right. So I have these Facebook and Instagram pages about autism that you're more than welcome to follow. You can share. I have a lot of information about autism. If you guys ever need to do a research paper, you can take articles from this page, and it's just access to you. The goal of this is so you guys can just keep in a loop with autism. I think today I'm going to go through all the new followers, and I'm going to choose about 5 people to send free autism t-shirts to if you decide to follow. April is Autism Awareness Month, so we'll be celebrating autism all month long. PTSA is having lunchtime activities every Thursday. We're having a carnival, a dance-off. You're going to paint your hands blue or different colors. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you guys can make it. So this concludes my autism presentation. Do you guys have any questions for me? Any questions at all?